Now, your goal in the Elephant Builder is probably to build good models. And by good models, I mean models that give you interesting results when you analyze them, and where the builders and all the other people who look at your model, they all agree on what the different parts of the model mean. Good models are made of good nodes. If you have good nodes, you generally have a good model. But making good nodes is tricky. So here are some tips. The most important thing is that nodes have to be nouns or noun phrases. The text that you type into that right-hand pane has to be a noun or a noun phrase. Otherwise, the model just doesn't make sense, and it's impossible to make connections that make any sense. Almost as important is that nodes represent variables, things that can change upward or downward, things that can get bigger or smaller, stronger or weaker. It's not that the Elephant Builder is a quantitative tool. It doesn't keep track of numbers. But all of the analytical features of the Elephant Builder are built on the idea of variables changing directionally and influencing the direction of change in the downstream nodes. So every node has to be capable of change in one of two directions. It's also useful for nodes to be as specific as you're comfortable making them. Now, I know that's a little bit vague, but what we're going for is context independence. And by this, I mean that different people of different backgrounds looking at the same node should interpret that node in the same way, so that when they build connections to or from that node, they'll be thinking of that node in the same way. It can be useful to make nodes, to express nodes in the form of something that's measurable, some kind of unit. And basically what this does is it just reinforces the specificity and the nature of nodes as being variables that can change in two directions. So let's look at some examples. Now, some people think of the Elephant Builder as modeling causes and effects, and they are often tempted to create nodes that say things like childhood poverty goes down because such and such a program makes childhood poverty go down. And of course, this is not a good Elephant Builder node because it's not a noun or a noun phrase. Childhood poverty is a noun phrase, and what's more, it's a variable. It's something that can get bigger or smaller. And so childhood poverty is actually a pretty good Elephant Builder node. Now, an even better Elephant Builder node is percent of children qualifying for free school lunch. That probably wouldn't fit in this space, but you have to use abbreviations. But still, it's unambiguous. Different people looking at this node would know not only what it means, but also how to measure it, how to tell whether it has gone up or down. Those of you who come from actor mapping backgrounds might be tempted to create a node police department because the police department influences different aspects of society. It is influenced by different programs and policies, but it's not a good Elephant Builder node because it's not a variable. Police department budget is a good variable. I mean, it's a thing that can get bigger or smaller. So it's an okay Elephant Builder node. But an even better node is police department training budget, because different lines in the budget might change in different directions at different times, and different lines in the budget can influence different aspects of society differently. And so in order to be really unambiguous about what cause or effect we're talking about, it makes sense to treat the different lines of the police department budget as separate nodes if you're modeling something like the police department. Now, it's useful to remember that you can change nodes. You create a node, it's problematic, you can fix it. And if you're working with a group of builders, the group can look at all the nodes together and identify the problematic nodes and change how they're worded to minimize ambiguity or whatever. But of course, it's always best to create good nodes from the start, because if you create a problematic node and it's in the model for a while, then other builders will be building connections to that problematic node, and those connections will then be ambiguous, or they'll be based on different conceptions of that same node. And so it's just always useful to try to keep this advice in mind from the start. But if you keep this advice in mind in general, then you're well on the way to making good models that are likely to give you interesting results. So that's just about it. Happy building.